So David trains in partnership with Kieran Maher, obviously, everyone knows them. They've won the premiership now for how many years now? Twice. And I'm sure for a few more, the numbers that they've obviously got in the stables, based in Ballarat, Cranbourne, Pakenham, Fingal, and it's a great partnership to be with because they do have so many options for their horses. So we'll first of all go through all of our horses with them, and there's a number of Sky Out owners here today, so we'll start off with Sky Out. We imported him from, he raced in Germany, he's actually Irish bred, but he came out here about 8 weeks ago. And so you went back to basics with Sky Out in the early days, mate. Did some dressage work with him, working on his head carriage. Can you sort of explain what techniques you use for that?
Yeah, he, you know, the international horses that come over, largely, you know, they're trained very differently. They're sort of asked to, they're asked to sort of stretch and do a bit more in their sort of homework, and they're not, you know, they're just a very different shape. So you need to sort of re-educate, not all of them, but a lot of them sort of re-educate them a bit. And we just noticed early on when he arrived that he was quite for a short horse, or not a very big horse, he's got the length, and he just wasn't sort of using himself quite the right way. So did a bit of dressage for a couple of weeks, handled that very well. He actually then had a couple of weeks with Georgia down at Fingal, and then came into Cranbourne, and he's actually settled in pretty well. I would say a lot of the internationals, because it's so different, they struggle to adapt. I'm not saying he's going to fully adapt this time round. It might take a couple, you know, a prep or two, but he seems to have adapted pretty well. He had a nice gallop on Thursday, worked well, and is going to have a jump out on Monday. So I suspect he's going to need 2 jump outs before going back to the races. But we'll be guided by him and how he performs in those.
You mentioned to be feed with European horses and the differences. So what's the differences basically on what you notice with these European horses when they come out? Is it the feet are soft and the hoof breaks away, or is it something different?
The main thing is at home horses are shod, you know, all year round, so that, you know, their feet get tired, and yeah, without getting sort of too technical, their ankles aren't quite right, and so their feet get quite long, and quite a lot of pressure then goes through their heels, which causes issues. So to try and get over that, we take their shoes off and largely train them as much as possible barefoot. It's another thing which is a huge benefit of Fingal, is that it's sand-based and they don't need to be shod. Cranbourne, they tend to survive barefoot as well. So the longer they can be barefoot, that sort of changes the shape of their foot a little bit. And you know, down the years, people would have had largely a lot of international horses where they've had feet issues for that. So thankfully, he's actually quite a good-footed horse, and I don't think we will have such issues.
Yeah, you mentioned he trials tomorrow at Cranbourne. What are you sort of expecting from the trial? And do you actually know what the time of that trial is? I think a few people are coming out to watch him. What would you be expecting from that trial?
If I told you the time, I'd be lying. But it'll be in the morning at some stage. But we'll get the time out, I'm sure, at some stage today. What are we expecting to see? Not too much. He won't have too much pressure put on. He's a genuine stayer. He's trialling over 1,000 metres, so for him, you know, he would have been used to probably working over 7-8 furlongs and being asked to sort of really stretch, whereas we're trying to sort of change that a little bit, sharpen him up. So will he be out the back? Probably. Do you need to panic? No, I don't think so. He's, you know, it'll be a good experience for him. It'll give us a bit of a guide as to what ground he might appreciate. It's going to be fairly soft there tomorrow. How he handles sort of the occasion of goes to the barriers, jumping away, how he pulls up, you know, breathing wise, how forward, how fit is he. So it's, you know, it's a fact-finding mission, which a lot of these horses that's you know, we've had plenty of horses very similar to him that have shown absolutely nothing, even their whole first prep. because they just haven't really adapted to it all. So he'll have a stronger trial in a couple of weeks, I would say, over some ground, and that's when we'd expect to see a bit more.
Yeah, he's had 9 starts and never raced below 2,000 metres, so you wouldn't think he'd be winning a 1,000-metre jump out. But yeah, well, I'll get that time out to everyone so we can go down and watch him tomorrow morning. One of our favourite horses, unanimous. Horses showed so much promise, yet his racing style is very frustrating because he's always out the back and needing a bit of luck. Yeah, so how's he going since his last run? I think he's scheduled to run at Flemington this Sunday.
It might be one of your favourites, not mine. Yeah, he's Jordan's favourite. Yeah, no. You know what I mean by that is he gets he makes it hard for himself. He's got a run style which makes it very difficult, particularly on Australian tracks. He likes to get back and run on and needs tempo, which very often we don't get. So everything has to fall right. He's been racing really well. His last start, particularly, his closing sections were excellent. He's going to Flemington, which is definitely his track on Sunday. He's right in his grade, over a mile, and that's exactly the sort of race that he can win. So we do feel he's still got some improvement in him, in that he's reached the level, but I think he can get to certainly sort of 84, 90 grade, and beyond that comes down to a bit of luck, but he looks like he's going to get his conditions a fairly wet week, which he handles okay. So hopefully we get a bit of tempo in the race.
Yeah, you mentioned that he's trained out at Fingal. What do they do? Because you can't gallop him at Fingal because you've got to bring him into Cranbourne. What do they do? Sort of on the days at Fingal. I assume there's no mechanical walker out there, and so how do you sort of train them out at Fingal? Maybe you should ask Georgia, but
yeah, probably should. So Georgia is in the middle there, runs probably down at Fingal. It's a very, very different environment to sort of your normal track environment. There's no rails, the surface is fantastic. They train on a natural sand-based surface, which is the key really to it all. And they're trained largely up hills as well, so it's a cross between sort of Australian beach style and the European hill styles. Training base, it's small numbers, a lot of care going into it. They live outside in open yards with their mates. It's very relaxing, and he's quite a highly strung character himself. He's different. He's fairly, he's always been that way, and I don't think he's getting better, but I think he'll fully change him. They gradually get better, these style of horses, each prep, and every time he goes out and comes back in, he's a little bit better to manage, but at the same time, he'll always have that little bit of a sluggle where he tends to over-race and need quite a lot of work. So Fingal's, its asset are a few things. You can work them over a bit further and a bit longer, but not at speed. So getting a really good fitness basis works really well. It's good for their feet, as I sort of touched on. But the main part of it is the environment. It's very relaxing, and it also works really well that you find they come in, maybe once a week or once a fortnight, have a sharp gallop, put that bit of sharpness into their legs on the grass, and then they come back and have a quiet time, but still getting them fit at the same time.
So there's no boxes at Fingal, is there? So they're in paddocks all day and night. Highland Raider. So he's a 3-year-old Kelvin that we bought as a ready-to-run horse by Highland Reel. We expect him to be a middle distance type around that 2,000 metres. Mark, have you done any testing on him to sort of confirm that what type of horse he's going to be?
Yeah, he certainly sort of sustains in his work. He's not a horse who sort of shows brilliant speed and is overly sharp. He's had 2 trials, going to have a 3rd one over a bit more ground. And that's definitely what he's going to be. Is a horse who's going to want a mile plus in time. So he's a very solid, sound horse, very straightforward, no nonsense. But he's going to need a few runs and a bit of ground.
So with a horse like that you know is going to need a bit of ground, are you sort of when you kick him off, you know, at his first start, are you looking at sort of 1400 to 1600 first time?
Yeah, he'll definitely start over 14, possibly even further. As I say, I'll have another trial at Ballarat in about 10 days, and you know, we'll be guided then by. It's been very tricky, I suppose, for everyone through winter. We've had a lot of wet tracks or a lot of synthetic trials. I don't think he really likes the synthetic, but has been forced to use it a lot. So that's been the challenge for everyone through winter. And he's a horse is a victim of that as well. I don't think he really appreciates wet grounds, and he hasn't really enjoyed the synthetic. So hopefully we get sort of a driest time for everyone, and we can sort of give him a decent, really good, strong hit out, get a sort of fitness. He's quite a stuffy horse. He's sound, so you can step into him, but he does take a bit of getting fit to the eye.
Passiona, 3-year-old filly by Nakoni. She was close to trialling last prep. Probably looks like she might get to the races next prep. She's been out, still spelling at the moment. How's she going?
Yeah, she did she squeezed the jump out in right at the end of the prep, and actually went quite nicely. Quite like her. She had to have a decent break. She sort of picked up a bug at the end of her prep. Just struggled early on in front. She was sort of feeling her limbs, had a bit of sort of high suspensory pain, just niggles, young horse niggles, so she's having a good break. She's just gone back into work at Cavallino, so she'll pre-train for a month and then go into full training and should get to the races this summer. And I think ultimately she's a sort of summer 3-year-old filly who should make her mark.
And during last prep, you gave her like a 6-week session up on the Hippie Sanders with Andrew Bobbin. That's installed. What's sort of the purpose of that? Is that to reduce weight, to help action?
Yeah, both really. I don't think she probably wouldn't have got to a jump out without that. As I say, she had niggling issues in front. Wasn't that easy to keep sound, just sort of, you know, the tracks at Ballarat. So Andrew's place is, you know, deep down, it just gets them fit without putting any real pressure on, you know, yourself. If you had a bit of knee pain and we're running on the roads, probably jar up, whereas you have her out on the beach, you might pull up a bit better from it. So had 6 weeks there, so we got her to a grass gallop, and she was able to have sort of 3 or 4 grass gallops into a trial. So sort of hopeful with her maturity she won't have to do that again. She can just go to one of the tracks and get all the way through the races hopefully.
The Zeus, without exception, 3-year-old filly, so she's the half-sister to Unanimous. She's now back at work. She was a little bit immature when we purchased her, so we knew it would take a bit of time to fill out her frame. Sort of, what are your observations of her at this stage of her career?
Yeah, she seems very similar to him mentally anyway. She's pretty highly strung. I think you'll need to be, if you're involved with her, you know, very patient. She did have some issues early doors. She's had, you know, a couple of really nice long breaks. She's pre-training with Adrian Corboy at the moment. Will then come to Ballarat. I think it would be a good result. We got her to a jump out this prep as a 3-year-old, and then she is going to take some time. So she's just quite hot, quite highly strung. So the sort of repetition of having her in and out of the stable will really help. But I like her. She's a good mover. As I say, she's in a similar mold to him, big action. But you know, we'll probably see if she shows enough as a 4-year-old, possibly beyond.
You sort of talk about Unanimous and the Zeus filly, and you make mention of big strides and things like that. Do you sort of measure that with what you do at the stable? I know you do a lot of scientific work behind the scenes with Demarin and Dave Eustace. How do you do that, and what do you go about to sort of measure that type of stuff?
Well, we sort of started doing data and things a bit more scientific about 3 years ago. Taking a bit of time to sort of really work it out and you know, collecting information with the data. You naturally sort of learn more and more, but you know, most horses, once they're doing class work, will have a tracker on their girth, measures heart rate, stride length, stride frequency, and it's not black and white by any means, but Unanimous, for instance, has got a very, very long stride. Suggests he wants ground. He's probably a good example of his stride length suggests that he wants more than a mile, which I don't think he does, but it certainly suggests that he's middle distance. So that stuff is very useful. I mean, what's really useful, for instance, is a horse like Unanimous has been consistent for a while. If his, what we're collecting off him is changed in any way, his heart rate has got worse, or his stride length changes, then we know that there might be something that's not quite right, and we can investigate that with vet's barriers and just look into things a little bit more deeper. So, and then can we then compare it to the Eustace filly when she then starts doing things a little bit quicker? Yes, I'm sure we will, and assess the comparison. So it's been a huge help, particularly for us. We've also got a lot of horses. We're not able to see every horse each day, but we're getting data off horses that we haven't seen for a few days, and if things have changed, then we're able to track that. So it's something that we're learning all the time on, thoroughly, right behind it, and believe that it's only going to improve, hopefully, results. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. So it's very interesting.
And finally, the 2-year-old colt, the Prodigy by Canary. He's a half brother to a horse that you actually trained, the Art of Flying, which was by Flying Artie. So he raced that Art of Flying race in the first 2-year-old race of the season. How does this colt compare to his half brother?
They're not dissimilar. The Pride of Flying is obviously going to take a bit longer. The Art of Flying race very early on, but I like him. He's good shape. He's still got a fair bit of maturing to go. He's up behind. I suspect he'll race at 2, probably at the back end, and be a nice 3-year-old. So that we haven't seen a lot of him yet, but everything that he's done has been very good.
Yeah, you make comments, when you're doing the updates that he's a professional colt, easy to train, sort of learns things quickly. What does sort of that mean when you say he's a professional colt? What does that sort of mean for the layman?
Well, attitude's a big thing. If they don't have the right attitude, you can make things very difficult, and it also probably affects whether they're going to be early or not. You can have a really strong forward horse, but if they don't have the right attitude, you're probably not going to get them to the races, or you might get them to the races, but probably not get the best out of them. So if they've got a good attitude, you'll get them there. Possibly even that little bit earlier than they're physically ready for. That's no science to that, but it's like humans, no different. If they're young and got a good brain, they're going to get to the mark a bit quicker. So you're looking at that just as much as their physique.
Okay, so there's still shares available on that Prodigy by Canary colt, and David thinks he's going to win a stakes race as a 2-year-old, don't you? Yeah. So thanks to David, as I said, Kieran Marr and David Eustace, leading trainers in the state. We're proud to have horses with them. They make their time to all of our owners. We really appreciate that on race day and events like that. So thanks very much, David. I just got a little gift. Thanks for your time today, red wine. Hopefully you like that. We'll have a...
Where's Guesty? That's the end reason.
Thanks, Dave. Guesty couldn't make it today. Yes, he was coming. Guesty's mum's actually not well, and he's up on the Sunshine Coast this weekend, and she hasn't been well for a while, and he does apologise for not being here. He is a good friend of Shannon and I, and he does help us out with these events, but yeah, his mum takes priority over something like that, and we respect that.